given us a profile. And of course, Mr. Warfield, before we had our first commercial break, we were talking about some of the things dealing with your background, your education, and your career. Let's continue our conversation by giving you an opportunity to talk about one of the real reasons that you came to Nashville, and that is to deal with the 100th anniversary of the birthday of Duke Ellington. And I know that you're also concerned about Gershwin, and you put the two of them together. Let's talk about that, because that's a very unusual combination of black and white at this particular time, and I think it might say something about music itself. Let's do it from that perspective.
Well, number one, last year was the 100th anniversary of Gershwin. This is of Duke Ellington, and of course that this whole period of time is a time in which American music and jazz reached its a pinnacle and became an accepted classical medium since then. Gershwin was a Tin Pan Alley writer who claim to fame now mostly is what they call a folk opera, Porgy and Bess. Now, Porgy and Bess was something that had really, in 1935, had its, 1930s, earlier had been 35, had its first premiere, and Gershwin wrote it as an opera, but it never really succeeded as an opera until many years later, and it was finally put on Broadway in the typical Broadway fashion, which was tied with dialogue and things like Summertime and the arias that were just Broadway musical hits. But Gershwin had put a great deal of attention into going to South Carolina and listening to black churches, the music in the churches, listening to the street calls, going out on the island and listening to all kinds of things.
You can almost hear that music now.
Yeah, and having people even come in and sing for him things so that he could try to notate the ethnic quality of the music. And he succeeded very much in that. Duke Ellington, of course, then was coming along as a very, very glamorous jazz player and composer. And though nowadays we know that it was not just jazz, his sacred music also was a part of what he's left us. And so this is a combination of two. It's sort of like from Porgy and Bess to Cotton Club, Porgy and Bess, all combined together, what we're doing here. And I'm having the greatest fun doing Porgy and Bess things, and then later on Duke Ellington tones with a jazz combo and whatnot, and that's specifically what we're doing here now. My first association, though, having to do with Gershwin probably came back in 1952. I had made the movie Showboat, in which I'd done Old Man River, and that was played internationally, and had given people a chance to see me. And then they decided to have a production of Porgy and Bess that was going to go to Europe, that the State Department was going to sponsor at least the trip to Vienna and Berlin, and I was asked to do the role of Porgy. So from Old Man River to Porgy, and then anything in between is what I was doing, and this happened the first time with me in 1952, Porgy. The movie came out in 51, Porgy and Bess in 1952, and then of course during the course of my career, I've been involved in both all over the country and all over the world. As a matter of fact, I did a production of Porgy and Bess in Vienna at the Volksoper in Vienna from 1965 till about 1972.
In residence there?
In residence, well, in what's called in repertory. I would go over about 3 months out of the year and do it. And then they added to that in repertory the Showboat, which was done in German. Showboat was done in German back then, and we actually did Old Man River in German. And every once in a while, as a kick, I'd tell people how Old Man River goes in German. Alter Strom, alter Strom, muss was wissen und sagt doch gar nichts. Fließt nur schweigend, nur immer schweigend vorbei. And but you know, it was something strange. The Viennese public resented that. They said, "We know this in English. Why don't you sing it in English?" Would you believe it? The last couple of years that I did it, I stepped out and sang it in English and went back into German for the dialogue. And then the Porgy and Bess has been something that's followed all of my career. I did not know Gershwin himself, but I did know people who were in the original, especially Helen Dowdy, who was the Strawberry Lady. And she would go in and she would sing all these things to Gershwin, and he'd try to notate it down. And the original people had the privilege of interpreting what Gershwin wrote in a way that was totally ethnic. So in other words, if he wrote, "Oh, they so fresh and fine, and they's just off of the vine," she would say, "Oh, they so fresh and fine."
From the ethnic,
and they's just off of the vine. And she'd add all of that to it. And that because he had black people who knew the idiom, that it made what he put down made sense. They happen to have a prayer in there where Serena asked Dr. Jesus to come and help Bess, who was sick in there. And it's just like, if you heard the gal that did it, most of the people who do Serena, they do it. It's just like you were in a Baptist church in the backwoods hearing somebody pray, time and time again. And Gershwin wrote all of that. And so it's been, that has been the main thrust of a lot of things that I've done, which were added to my concert singing, added to the oratorio things I've done, and then quite often I did also, as I said, opera in concert version. I've done Aida that way, doing Amnasro. I've done the Boris Godunov in concert version in Russian, and these things have all become the stalwarts of my career since then. So it's anything but concert now, but it just encompasses many, many things now.
Well, I tell you, we have really been impressed, and I think one of the things that I remember about Porgy and Bess is Porgy's plea when Bess was about to leave, and Your Old Man River and Showboat and all of that. I think those are the things that in many occasions have brought tears to my eyes and things that I've thought about. And
yes, you know, and it's very interesting. For instance, the all of that Gershwin wrote into it, especially the little recitatives, all of that was taken out, and because that didn't work on Broadway. And then the Houston Opera Company restored a lot of those things, and it became one of those things that's now a full-fledged opera.
Let us interrupt you for this second commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience after this following commercial break. We're talking to Mr. William Warfield.